Welcome everyone to Beattys on the Fly. In this segment, we're going to be tying a wool wing spruce. We're tying it for the Fly Fishers International Fly Tying Group, the Fly of the Month. We're the Beattys from Boise, Idaho. And just to give you an idea, the direction that we're going, we are working off of this script. It comes from the Fly Fishers International website. In fact, this is the fly that we're going to be tying tonight. In fact, let's take a quick look at the roadmap fly here for you. There it is, the wool wing spruce. You can take a quick look at just kind of some of the features we'll be looking at as we work our way through that. To get to the document that I'm holding here, you'll get that off of the FFI website. And the way to get the access to the Fly of the Month, whether it's this one that will eventually end up on Fly of the Month or others, you go to www.flyfishersinternational.org. When you get to that website, well, first off, we would really love it if you're not a member of FFI that you join. I mean, come on, folks, for the amount of money it costs to join for a year, it's worth about probably less than a case of beer. So, I mean, you can afford it for your favorite sport. Come on. Anyway, but once you get to the flyfishersinternational.org website, go to the section called Get Involved. Click on that. Then click on Fly of the Month. Then when you click on Fly of the Month, it will take you to the current pattern and recipe. If you want to download the document that I just held up, you'll go right below the current pattern and recipe, and the very first one in that section called back issues will be the one that gives you the download. By the way, just FYI for you, there are back issues of Fly of the Month there from the all the way back to December in 1997. So there is a lot of information there for you. Make good use of it. And again, remember, that's there to help you, and we'd appreciate help from you in the form of a membership. Moving back to the fly that we're going to be working with tonight, the wool wing spruce, let's take a look at the actual recipe for that fly. The wool wing spruce, we're going to tie it on a salmon fly hook, size 2 to 8. If you happen to have them smaller or bigger than that, then please feel free to use them. That's just what I happen to have here in my inventory. The thread will be black. The tag is flat silver tinsel, but if all you've got is gold, use it. It'll be just fine. The tail is peacock herl. The body is red floss. The thorax is peacock herl with a copper rib. The wings are tan and black sheep's wool. The hackle is brown or furnace, and it's a thread head. Getting ready to move into actually tying the fly, let's take a look at one of the hooks that we've got in the vise here. I want you to notice that I've already got some black thread wrapped on the hook. In fact, let me take a little bit closer look there. You can see it probably starts in about the center of the shank and goes back, and it's hanging right at the hook point, within a thread turn or two of the hook point. That's where I'm going to start my tag, and I'll wrap that tag down so it lines up with the throat of the barb, which is the little pointy thingy, if you don't know what it is, where it joins the hook as a throat. And this is the hooks that I'm working with tonight. And in fact, these are partridge Solar, and they're hooks by Michael Froden, who's a Norwegian fly tyer, and these are size 7. And I'll just set those over by the vise. And we'll be working with mylar tinsel, and I happen to have small, so that's what I'll be using. And I'll just wrap a couple of turns there and then just start wrapping my tag down into the bend. Now I want to show you a little trick as I do that. It's a lot easier to bend or turn the hook bend towards you to wrap. Back up, take off all of the turns that I had holding the original, so that I'm only anchoring the tag with the 2 turns of thread that I'm placing right now. Let's trim that off the hook temporarily. Now we're back to the materials, and I'll grab the red floss. The reason that I cut the thread off is I'm going to be actually applying the floss using a bobbin. It makes it go a little bit faster. Couple of turns. All right, I'll trim that off right there. And we'll take our peacock curl for the tail, and we'll attach our tail at the same time we're putting on the back part of the body. I want you to notice something that I'm doing as I wrap that floss. I'm allowing the floss to slip over the tip of my fingernail and the back of the finger right there, and it keeps forcing that floss to lay flat in there, and it also allows the peacock curl to collapse under the floss and keeps hiding those fibers, where sometimes if you try to wrap floss over peacock curl, it will end up with a fiber sticking out. When you do it this way, it makes it lay right in there, pushing that peacock curl out of the way as you wrap it in place. Now you have options on what I'm doing right here, and that is you could put a rib over this if you wanted to, or you could just decide to cover it with a glue of some kind. How about UV? That would make a real shiny thing. I'm not going to do anything tonight. I'll leave that up to you. You're the fly tyer. Make your materials do what you want them to do. Okay, at this point in the construction of the fly, we are at a point where we have a choice on how to handle the peacock. Let's take a look at the vise, and I'll tell you what I mean. We could just tie this off, switch to this black thread, and wrap this peacock just like this, and you'll end up with a pretty decent looking fishing fly. But you'll get a lot better looking fly if your concern is what it looks like, is if you'll go ahead and trim this off, and you're going to end up tying it in by the butt ends, or some other pieces by the butt ends, because you'll get a better placement of the materials if you'll start at the thicker end right here that I'm holding in my fingers and work towards the tips. Now, I'm going to set that down for the moment and just advance my floss forward just a couple of turns so I can switch back to my black thread. Now, if you were wrapping the floss by hand, you wouldn't have to cut the thread off and on like I just did. Now that I've decided to flip the peacock around and tie it in by the base ends, I want to attach my wire rib material first. There, that's looking pretty good. Pull that off to the side out of my way. And I'll get a couple of pieces of peacock curl from the materials. And we'll just pull back in here, and I'll trim those off so they're kind of even. Tie them in place. And it's really important, this next thing I'm going to talk to you about, and that is keeping these hurls together as I wrap them. See how they'll start to come apart on you? They'll spread apart. Don't want to spread apart, but anyway, what they'll often do is spread apart like that is you'll start to wrap them, and you can avoid that by leaving the thread hanging right there against the material and wrapping forward using the weight of the bobbin to keep the peacock hurl in place. It's a trick from Dutch Bachman we learned here several weeks ago during a Zoom presentation, and we're sharing it now with all of you. Now we're wrapping forward using the weight of the bobbin to place that material. Right, got it right there. Tie that off. Trim off the waist. And I'm going to back wrap, reverse wrap, whatever you want to call it, through that to strengthen that peacock application. Try to keep those turns of wire even, like about 5 turns. Now we're going to move over to the materials area. And the next couple of steps are going to be tan with black in the center wing. Tan on the bottom, black in the center, tan on top. So let me just grab a bundle of this sheep wool, pull it out, cut it, and I'll take it over to the vise. And I'll just kind of stroke that out. Take out the, even wool, like many other things, has the short fibers down at the base end. And I just got rid of those. And I'm going to want my wing to reach to about the end to the center of the tail. So I'm going to shoot for the center of the tail. What really happens is this will all suck down, and actually once it's wet will be about as long as the tail. I'll go ahead and tie that on. Trim off the waist. And that's going to make a pretty good looking wing. Now we'll go back to the materials and get a little piece of black. I won't need quite as much black as I did on the base of the tan that I used for the base of the wing. But we'll get, it'll just kind of, all it does is provide a little bit of accent. Get that really long fibers out of there. And as you can see, I'm going to pull now the really short fibers out of there as well. And I want that to be right in, tie it right in place there. One of the interesting things about wool, and I'll probably talk to you about it in a little bit as we go forward, but you can, like a preen a feather wing, you can kind of preen that wool and get it all to kind of stick together. All right, now back to the materials. For one more clump of the tan, right? It's a little bit too long right there. Get rid of the big wad of stuff that I'm getting rid of right there. And what I want to do is just kind of preen those all together and make sure it's going to lay about right. That looks pretty good. Now I'll go ahead and tie that in place. Okay. Kind of pull all that into, that looks pretty good. Get that all preened into position. Let's go back over to the materials. Let me get out my whiting hackle. Now I've already got a feather pulled out because I tearing these out. Sometimes you end up with more than you want. I'll just set it over at the vise. But the thing we're looking for is the fibers that will reach back almost to the point of the hook, and usually right down in this area right here. And then we want one with pretty good marking. And I've as I said, I've already done that. I've got the feather over here, and we're going to get ready to fold it. And what we need to do is go to the wide shot, and I'm going to show you one of the ways to fold the feather, and that is you just hold it by the tip and stroke those fibers back with your trigger finger and thumb on the left hand, just like I'm doing right there. Now that's one way to get the job done. There's another way to get the job done, and we're going to do that now when we get back at the vise. I'll also fold it over there. I'm just going to go ahead and tie my hackle on here. And one of the things that I like to do, especially when I have a nice long tip like I have there, I don't want to cut it off yet. I want to pull that up and over so that it isn't going to pull out on me. I can leave a little stub there. It doesn't really make any difference because it will be all hidden by the hackle that I wrap. Now that I've got this in place, I can take the edge of my scissors, or I can take the edge of my tweezers and just stroke them along the edge of the stem, holding that hackle just like we did right there. And it makes a nicely folded hackle ready to wrap a wet style into a wet style collar. Tie it off with 2 turns of thread. And now I'm going to dog leg that hackle because I want a nice small head and I don't want any waste from my trim feather showing up in the head. I want a nice delicate head, but I still want the fly to be fairly strong. Well, I've got 2 turns holding that hackle in place right now, and I'm going to dog leg it, we call it, by bending the hackle like that and wrapping the thread head in front of it so it goes back over it. So it's actually, there's a bend in there to keep it from pulling out. So we'll pull that back and I'll just start wrapping the thread head, making each subsequent turn a little further back on the hook. Looks about right. Trim that. I'll take about 2 more turns just to kind of cover up that little trimmed end right there. And we'll get ready to do a whip finish. And a good whip finish is one that starts back at the back of the head, and each subsequent turn gets closer to the hook eye. Trim, bringing the wing into place. Well, there you have the wool wing spruce. A lot of fun tying and sharing it with you. Remember, we would sure love to have you join us in Fly Fishers International. Join the fly tying group while you're at it. Visit the Fly of the Month. If you know anybody that could contribute to the Fly of the Month. If they're members, well, we'd love to have them help. If they're good fly tyers and they're not a member, well, you already know the answer to that question and the solution. But anyway, for now, thanks. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.